a high-speed train that seems completely ordinary, but within minutes, it turns into a moving nightmare. When a mysterious girl carrying a deadly virus boards a train, everything begins to collapse. Passengers panic, doors are locked, and there's no way out. And the most terrifying part, isn't the zombies outside, but what humans are willing to do to survive. At 300 kilometers per hour, with death spreading from carriage to carriage, a father is forced to face the ultimate choice: protect his daughter, or abandon others to stay alive. This isn't just another zombie movie. It's a brutal test of humanity, where the line between human and monster becomes thinner than ever. Now, let us dive into this masterpiece from Train to Busan. The film opens at a disease control checkpoint, where a disinfection team is operating near China. Workers report that a nearby biotech company has a leak, while a driver complains he still has to finish his delivery before heading home. As he drives off, he accidentally hits a deer because he isn't paying attention. Under normal circumstances, it would just be roadkill, but something horrifying happens. The deer slowly stands back up, its eyes completely white, lifeless, and unnatural. The main character, Suk-woo, is a fund manager connected to a biotech company. After realizing the consequences tied to his investments, he decides to sell all his shares. Despite being wealthy, he is divorced and lives with his young daughter. His biggest flaw is simple: he is too busy to ever truly connect with her. The next day is his daughter's birthday, so he buys her an expensive gift. But she isn't happy. Suin says the only thing she wants is to go to Busan and see her mother. The following morning, the two head straight to the train station. On board, there's a group of students on a trip, including a standout young man played by Choi Woo-sik. Suk-woo and his daughter quickly board as well. Just as a guard looks away, a desperate woman rushes onto the train. She is the same person who was attacked by the deer earlier. The moment the train departs, chaos begins to unfold at the station. Inside a restroom, a homeless man mutters that everyone is going to die. Suin needs to use the bathroom, but every stall is occupied, so she moves to another carriage. Meanwhile, Suk-woo wakes up and realizes his daughter is gone, sending him into a panic as he searches for her. The infected woman begins to deteriorate, stumbling out into the aisle before collapsing. A train attendant approaches to help, but it's already too late. The infection spreads to the next carriage. Suk-woo witnesses the horrifying attack firsthand. Within seconds, the victim turns into one of them. He immediately grabs his daughter and runs. The zombies charge forward like mindless machines. The doors fail to close in time. There's no way to stop them. One carriage after another is overrun. A pregnant couple is terrified beyond words. Meanwhile, Suk-woo and his daughter are still trapped in danger, with the safe door already sealed shut. At the last second, Suk-woo manages to force the door open and get inside. A large man named Sang-hwa initially thinks he is a threat and tries to push him out, but quickly locks the door instead. He tells his wife to run ahead while he stays behind to block the zombies. Suk-woo finally gets his daughter back to safety. But under pressure from a selfish executive, he locks the door, leaving others trapped outside. But Suin insists they should help them. Reluctantly, Suk-woo opens the door, saving two people just in time. However, the doors between carriages can't be locked. He reassures everyone that the zombies won't know how to open them, they only attack what they can see. The pregnant woman cleverly splashes water and covers the glass with newspaper, blocking their visibility. The zombies immediately stop moving. Now, only a few carriages near the front remain safe. Suk-woo calls home to check on his mother, but mid-conversation, it becomes clear that she has already fallen victim. The realization hits him hard. As the train approaches a station, the conductor refuses to stop. Outside is a complete disaster. The train is forced to keep moving forward because no one knows where safety truly lies. Meanwhile, the government is still confused, failing to grasp what is happening. They dismiss the situation as civil unrest, urging people not to believe rumors about a zombie outbreak and to trust that authorities will handle everything. On the train, passengers continue moving toward the front. With no seats left, little Suin gives hers to an elderly woman. But her father pulls her back and scolds her, saying that in a situation like this, she needs to think about herself first. The girl quietly replies that the old woman has an injured leg. At that moment, the conductor announces the train will stop at the next station, where military forces are supposed to secure the area. Suspicious, Suk-woo heads to the rear car to make a phone call. The person on the other end warns him that anyone arriving there will be quarantined and asks him to avoid that at all costs. He is told to head to the East Square once they arrive, but when the train pulls into the station, there is no one there. The doors open automatically. The executive and several passengers step out without hesitation, unaware that the real nightmare is only just beginning. The executive rushes to the conductor, asking where the military is, but the conductor has no idea. It turns out the executive already knew a classified detail. The city has been completely locked down, with no access to other regions. Only Busan remains open. He urges the train to depart immediately, but the conductor refuses, insisting they must help any survivors. Meanwhile, the passengers move into the station's waiting area, where the eerie silence feels deeply unsettling. Suk-woo separates from the group and heads toward the meeting point. The homeless man overhears the phone call and insists on following him. Suin suggests they warn everyone, but her father quickly shuts her down. In her eyes, he is always thinking only about himself. That's why her mother left. Elsewhere, Sang-hwa notices blood smeared across the walls and begins to suspect something is wrong. Suk-woo spots someone he knows ahead and tells his daughter to stay back while he approaches. At the other end of the station, the group encounters soldiers, but they've already turned into zombies. Sang-hwa immediately grabs his wife and runs up the escalator in the opposite direction. The students panic and follow the conductor. The more chaos erupts, the more aggressively the zombies attack. As Suk-woo gets closer, he realizes his acquaintance is already infected. The zombies surge forward in a frenzy. Suin is seconds away from being bitten, but Sang-hwa steps in just in time, while the pregnant woman pulls the girl away to safety. Meanwhile, Suk-woo is under heavy attack. In a desperate move, he jams a book into a zombie's mouth and manages to break free. In another carriage, the student group manages to lock the doors. The homeless man grabs Suk-woo and pulls him away, helping him escape another brutal wave of attacks. Because they were saving Suk-woo, the door fails to lock in time. Humans and monsters push against each other in a desperate struggle, neither side giving an inch. Some passengers manage to escape outside, but the moment they open another train door, they're instantly overwhelmed and killed. On the other side, the conductor returns, and the group quickly moves toward the front cars, searching for a way out. Suddenly, the infected soldiers from the upper level pour down from above, crashing onto the floor and chasing the last survivors. The pregnant woman helps the elderly and a child escape, getting them and the homeless man back onto the train just in time. The executive immediately orders the train to depart, but a student protests, saying her friend is still outside. Overcome with fear, the staff follow the executive's command and start the train. Meanwhile, 5 people are still holding the station door shut, struggling until they finally manage to secure them. Shortly after, the conductor calls control to request clearance for a route to Busan. The pregnant woman is about to make a call when a young man stops her. The glass doors between the train cars have already been shattered. If the zombies return, it's over. The 4 of them begin moving carefully, trying to stay silent, but something is already approaching from behind. They're forced to hide inside a restroom, barricading themselves as the number of zombies continues to grow. It's only a matter of time before they're overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Car 15 becomes the main safe zone, where most survivors have gathered. Only Suk-woo's group and the pregnant woman remain separated. Suin uses the pregnant woman's phone to call her husband, telling him they're in Car 13 and desperately need help. But between them lies a massive horde of zombies. At this moment, they're still stuck in Car 9. The student starts wrapping tape around his hands. Sang-hwa takes point to break a path forward. Suk-woo guards the rear, and the student stays in the middle. The 3 of them push ahead, launching into a life-or-death fight. But nothing goes as easily as they expected. Even though they're dead, the zombies are incredibly strong. Without Sang-hwa, they wouldn't stand a chance. The trio works in perfect sync, every move precise, because one small mistake could mean instant death. They manage to break through to Car 10. But in Car 11, they're faced with something far worse. The student's own classmates. The young man hesitates, unable to act. Sang-hwa doesn't. He charges in immediately, with Suk-woo backing him up. But the infected students are shockingly powerful, pushing both men into a dangerous situation. The student still can't bring himself to accept the truth. Then suddenly, the train enters a tunnel, and the zombies stop attacking. It becomes clear they only react to sound. Suk-woo tests it by tapping a stick against the ceiling. Just as expected, the noise draws the zombies away. Using this, they successfully make it into Car 12. They pause briefly, because the next car is packed with zombies. Suk-woo comes up with a plan: use a phone to distract them. Right on cue, the train enters another tunnel. The three move closer, then toss a phone into the distance, letting it ring non-stop. It works. The entire horde is drawn away, giving them a chance to reach the remaining survivors safely. When the father finally sees his daughter again, he lets out a breath of relief. As the train exits the tunnel, they take cover behind a partition. Based on timing, they have about 2 minutes before the next tunnel, roughly 3 kilometers ahead. While waiting, Sang-hwa mutters bitterly, "I bet you never even talk to your kid, right? When they're young, they don't understand how hard you work, and yet we're always the ones blamed. That's what being a man gets you." The three share a dry laugh, regaining their composure. A female student receives a message from Choi Woo-sik, saying they're almost there and should get ready to open the door. She excitedly shares the news. But the executive immediately objects. In his selfish view, anyone who just fought through a horde of zombies must be infected. They can't be allowed in. The rest stay silent, effectively agreeing. The same people who were just saved moments ago now turn their backs without hesitation. The train plunges back into darkness. The group starts moving forward again, but the zombies are everywhere, blocking every possible path. With no other option, they climb into the overhead luggage racks. Suk-woo throws a bag behind them to distract the zombies, signaling the others to move quickly. But the homeless man at the back starts to struggle. The student wants to go back for him, but Suk-woo stops him. Then something changes. Suk-woo turns back. He decides to go save him. But at that exact moment, the train exits the tunnel. Light floods in. The two are forced to hide immediately. The zombies begin to wander closer. One small sound could get them all killed. They lock eyes, then silently agree, count to 3, and run. But in that split second, one of them steps on an empty can. There is no time to think, just run. Sang-hwa rushes to shut the door behind them. But a zombie's head gets stuck in the frame. The situation turns critical. And worst of all, the people on the other side refuse to open the door. They barricaded everything. And the one leading it? The ruthless executive. Even the student's phone call is crushed underfoot. It's pure betrayal, people repaying kindness with cruelty, willing to sacrifice those who save them. With no other choice, Suk-woo grabs a weapon and rushes in to support Sang-hwa. They struggle desperately to shut the door. Sang-hwa roars, if they want to open it, then break the damn door. But it's too strong. Even with their strength, it won't budge. Meanwhile, they're seconds away from being overwhelmed. Sang-hwa braces the door with his bare hands, but a zombie bites into him. Even then, he refuses to let go, holding on with everything he has to buy time. On the other side, the student keeps smashing the door, nearly breaking through. But the executive rushes in and slams the next door shut, trapping the student's arm. He is determined to seal off the last path to survival. Then he turns to the others, shouting for them to push harder to crush the people on the other side. Completely. The woman realizes the man who saved her life and rushes forward to pull everyone back, but she is too weak. It's only in moments like this that people truly understand how terrifying human nature can be. The young boy can only cry, while the executive grows more vicious by the second. Meanwhile, the door on their side is being pushed to the brink of breaking. The pregnant wife sobs uncontrollably, knowing she is about to lose her husband. Sang-hwa tells Suk-woo to take his wife and go while he stays behind to hold the line. Please, take care of her for me. Suk-woo has no choice but to lead the pregnant woman away. At that exact moment, the door behind them bursts open. Sang-hwa uses every last ounce of strength to face the horde alone, buying them time. On the other side, Suk-woo fights desperately. One man fights to survive, another fights to save others. In the end, Sang-hwa is overwhelmed and turns into a zombie. But his will doesn't break. Even in his final moments, he keeps resisting. The moment he collapses is the moment the door finally opens. But the elderly woman doesn't make it in time. Once things calm down for a second, Suk-woo storms forward and punches the executive. Why would you try to kill us when you could saved us? But the man instantly screams that Suk-woo is infected, manipulating the crowd to turn against him. Too cowardly to act on their own, the others blindly follow his words. In the end, they force Suk-woo's group out into the front waiting area. Get out. Get out of here. They shout in unison. When herd mentality takes over, people become capable of unimaginable cruelty. A female student chooses to stand by her friend and leaves with them. The rest are driven out under a storm of insults. Sometimes, human nature is more terrifying than any zombie. Suk-woo's group is pushed into a separate section. They secure the doors tightly from their side. Only then does the executive finally feel safe. But the elderly woman is filled with rage. She mourns the good people who sacrificed themselves for the ungrateful. Slowly, she walks toward the door, right in front of the stunned executive. In the end, evil brings its own downfall. The good sacrifice themselves to save others, while the selfish meet their fate because of their own cruelty. The remaining survivors sit in silence, unsure of what comes next. But for the first time, they truly value one another. Then Suk-woo receives a call. His subordinate reveals the horrifying truth: his company is responsible for the outbreak. A biological product leak has spiraled completely out of control. Suk-woo is shattered. He can't believe his actions led to something this catastrophic. He breaks down, realizing how many lives have been lost because of him. Suddenly, the train slams on the brakes due to an obstacle ahead. The conductor tells everyone to stay put while he searches for another locomotive to continue the journey. Meanwhile, the executive and the train attendant remain hidden in a restroom, waiting for their chance to survive. The conductor quickly moves to another train, but it's just as dangerous, forcing him to keep searching. Suk-woo's group of 6 refuses to wait and decides to find their own way out. At the same time, the conductor reaches the control room and manages to operate a different engine to move forward. Seeing how dangerous it is outside, the executive tricks the train attendant into looking out, then shoves him forward as bait to escape. But in his panic, he forgets to close the door, allowing the zombies to flood in once again. On the other side, the student manages to find an empty train. Suddenly, another train slams into it, completely wrecking the carriage. The young man, played by Choi Woo-sik, barely makes it onto a safe car and tries to break through to the next one. But at that exact moment, the executive appears from behind and throws the girl forward as bait. The student rushes in, desperately pushing zombies away to save his girlfriend, but it's already too late. A heartbreaking end to a love that never got its chance. In despair, he lets her bite him, choosing to end it altogether. The executive runs off without looking back. Elsewhere, the remaining 3 are trapped between overturned train cars, with a horde of zombies smashing against the glass, ready to break in. Suk-woo manages to pry open a metal bar, and the 3 of them make a run for it. Behind them, the zombies charge in a frenzy. Freedom is just within reach. Suk-woo grabs his daughter and sprints toward the train with everything he has left. He gets both of them on board, but one zombie clings on, then more pile up behind it. The weight begins to drag the train down. Suk-woo has no choice but to fight back, kicking them off one by one with all his strength. At the last second, he finally manages to shake them off. He moves toward the front of the train, only to find the executive has already turned into a zombie. Somehow, he still retains a fragment of awareness, even managing to open doors. But once he realizes he is infected, he snaps, driven by one last twisted urge to kill the remaining survivors. He lunges forward, slamming Suk-woo to the ground, then turns toward the child. Suk-woo grabs him, but gets pinned down. The pregnant woman rushes in to help, nearly getting bitten herself. In a split-second decision, Suk-woo covers the zombie's mouth, saving her, but gets bitten in the process. He accepts his fate, choosing to sacrifice himself to protect his daughter and the woman. He wraps a chain around his body and uses his remaining strength to push the infected executive off the train. Knowing he doesn't have much time left, he quickly explains how to stop the train when they reach the station. He whispers his thanks, his goodbye, and steps off the train, embracing his fate. The train reaches the outskirts of Busan. The pregnant woman is close to giving birth, and the 2 survivors slowly make their way through a dark tunnel. Just beyond it lies safety. Snipers are already in position, ready to shoot anything that looks infected. From a distance, their silhouettes resemble zombies. The soldiers prepare to pull the trigger. But then, they hear a small voice. The girl begins to sing in the darkness. And just like that, Train to Busan comes to an emotional end, leaving behind a haunting echo that stays with you long after the credits roll. What if the only safe place left on Earth was even more dangerous than the zombies outside? For years after a deadly virus wiped out South Korea, one haunted ex-soldier is forced to return to the abandoned peninsula for a mission worth millions. But the moment he steps back into the ruins, he realizes the infected aren't the scariest thing waiting for him. Because in this world, the people who survived have become far more brutal than the monsters. Explosive car chases, non-stop tension, and a fight for survival, where trust means nothing. Peninsula takes the zombie genre to a whole new level. Based on the events of Part 1, While Kangwon province is being overrun by zombies, the protagonist's family is still trapped inside a car, desperately trying to escape the chaos. But during the drive, someone suddenly begs for a ride. Seeing the man covered in blood leaves the protagonist torn between fear and compassion. He is forced to choose between protecting his sister's family and holding onto his humanity. In the end, he decides that his family's safety comes first. The deadly virus rapidly spreads across the entire country. The only safe options left are either fleeing to North Korea or escaping the peninsula by sea. At the same time, the protagonist manages to get his sister and her child onto a massive refugee ship carrying tens of thousands of survivors. While sitting with them, one of his subordinates rushes over and reveals that the ship is changing course toward Hong Kong, forcing him to confront his superiors. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support more movie recaps like this. But tragically, the little boy has already been bitten. Only his mother remains, desperately holding him in her arms. The situation is critical, and they must move immediately before it's too late. Yet the grieving mother refuses to let go of her child. By the time the protagonist returns, everything is already lost. The mother would rather die than abandon her own son. Because of the outbreak, no country is willing to accept South Korean refugees anymore. 4 years quickly pass, and the story shifts to Hong Kong, where the protagonist is now living as a refugee. The former military commander has transformed into a notorious crime boss. He offers the protagonist and his group a dangerous mission: return to Korea and recover hidden gold. Since zombies have completely taken over the country, nobody is left to touch the mountains of cash and gold anymore. It has become nothing less than a gigantic treasure vault. In reality, the gang had already loaded $20 million onto a truck, but half of it was abandoned near Omak Bridge. Anyone who survives the mission will receive $5 million each. Trapped in poverty and desperate for a second chance at life, the protagonist cannot resist the temptation. Furious at his miserable situation, he immediately boards the ship without hesitation. The gang's vessel is fully equipped with weapons, but they will only wait exactly 3 days before leaving. The 4 men begin what is essentially a suicide mission. What they don't realize is that a horrifying nightmare is waiting for them inside Korea. At night, the zombies are blind and can only react to sound, meaning every movement must remain completely silent. They also need to escape before sunrise. Thinking quickly, the group steals a vehicle and drives deeper into the ruined city. Soon, they discover a truck that seems to match their target. The protagonist cautiously steps forward to inspect it, only to realize it's the wrong one. At that exact moment, the moonlight breaks through the darkness, revealing thousands of zombies standing right beside them. The group continues their desperate search for the truck. This time, everyone jumps out together to inspect another vehicle, unaware that someone has already been watching them from the shadows. And finally, this is the real truck. Even the money inside is still completely untouched. Just as the protagonist is about to pull the dead driver's body out of the truck, the man suddenly wakes up, terrifying him into smashing the horn repeatedly and setting off alarms throughout the entire street. The protagonist shoots him dead, but the loud gunfire instantly echoes through the city. As expected, hordes of zombies immediately come charging toward them like maniacs. The protagonist stays behind to cover everyone's escape. Every wave he takes down is replaced by an even larger one. Thinking quickly, he shoots another abandoned car, so its alarm starts blaring, distracting the zombies away from the group. Unfortunately, his vehicle crashes into another car, causing the undead to change direction and attack again. No one expected the zombies to evolve this quickly. At this point, the only option left is to run for their lives. The group finally manages to get back into the truck and escape. But if they thought the mission would be that easy, they were terribly mistaken. Someone suddenly fires a flare from behind, blocking their path. The moment the convoy stops, even more flares are launched into the sky. The bright lights and noise attract massive hordes of zombies from every direction. 2 vehicles slam the gas pedal and race away at full speed, but after crashing into countless infected bodies, both cars lose control. The cargo truck smashes directly into them, triggering a horrifying accident. The protagonist is thrown dozens of feet away and can only watch helplessly as his teammates get devoured alive. Someone deliberately fired the flare so the zombies could spot them. But as long as there is still hope, the protagonist refuses to give up. He pulls out his gun and keeps fighting despite the impossible odds. Meanwhile, his brother-in-law quickly climbs into the truck container and seals the door shut. At the same time, the protagonist runs completely out of bullets. The situation becomes hopeless. Hundreds of zombies stand before him, baring their terrifying white teeth. At the last possible second, a speeding vehicle suddenly crashes through the chaos to rescue him. Behind the wheel is an incredibly fearless little girl. Her driving skills are unbelievable, and her drifting abilities are on another level. Sitting beside her is another young child. The protagonist is still frozen in shock, while the kids remain completely calm, proving that surviving in this hellscape is anything but easy. What follows is a series of insane drifting maneuvers worthy of a professional action movie. It feels like the legendary transporter driving style has been reborn through this little girl, almost as if Jason Statham himself possessed her behind the wheel. She successfully escapes the zombie horde, but unfortunately the protagonist loses consciousness. Soon, another massive group of zombies appears ahead of them. The young girl pulls out a toy car and skillfully controls it to lure the infected away. She successfully draws most of the zombies toward the back. As for the few remaining in front, she simply runs them over without hesitation. Meanwhile, the brother-in-law is still trapped inside the truck container. Suddenly, a vehicle covered in lights and blasting loud music appears, luring the zombies away from the area while 3 other cars approach the truck. Stepping out are surviving rogue soldiers. Shockingly, the truck driver actually survived the crash. But the cruel gang leader repeatedly smashes the man's head before finishing him off with a giant steel pipe. After everything, the gang drives away with the truck. Back on the other side, the protagonist finally wakes up. He discovers that the people who rescued him are a slightly eccentric old man and his 2 young granddaughters. There is also a young mother among them. Shockingly, she turns out to be the same woman he abandoned years ago. As for the other gang, they belong to Unit 631, a ruthless militia group that survives by looting and murdering people. Every night, they venture outside to gather supplies before returning prior to sunrise. Unfortunately, the gang leader has no idea that the truck is filled with money. Instead, he discovers the protagonist's brother-in-law hiding inside. Without hesitation, he orders his men to throw him into a zombie arena for entertainment. Only the crippled young man realizes that the truck is filled with an enormous amount of cash. He immediately rushes to report it to another gang leader, Captain Co. The disabled man tells him that the truck contains no food supplies at all, but instead holds mountains of US dollars. Meanwhile, the protagonist finally tells the young mother the truth about everything that happened. Unfortunately, the satellite phone used to contact the team waiting on the ship is still inside the truck, and at that exact moment, Captain Co discovers the phone. At the same time, the protagonist's brother-in-law is being dragged into the Savage Arena, where prisoners are used for entertainment against zombies. The gang throws him into a metal container packed with other captives. Soon after, the prisoners are pushed out into the arena outside. Beyond the gates, crowds of spectators scream, cheer, and dance like lunatics. Captain Co powers on the satellite phone and immediately hears the crew from the ship communicating through it. The people on the other end promise that if the money is delivered, they will allow them on board and help them escape Korea. Hearing this, Co instantly agrees. Escaping this living hell is all anyone wants anymore. Back inside the arena, the gang releases hordes of zombies to attack the trapped prisoners. Outside, the audience places bets on which numbered contestant will survive the longest. Even though they still look human on the outside, their humanity was devoured by the zombie apocalypse long ago. The victims are quickly overwhelmed, and many are brutally killed. Finally, the horrifying 2-minute countdown comes to an end. One brave survivor sacrifices himself by running into the open to lure the zombies away, giving the others a chance to escape into a nearby building. Afterward, the gang throws food at the survivors as if feeding animals in a cage. Meanwhile, the young mother begins forming a dangerous plan. If they can steal the money and make it to the harbor, they might finally escape this cursed country. Because once someone encounters the ruthless Unit 631, surviving becomes worse than death itself. Captain Co knows that escaping will only be possible after nightfall. On top of that, he must avoid the watchful eyes of the brutal gang leader, Huang. Because of this, he decides to create chaos large enough to destroy the entire military camp. At the same time, the protagonist's group and the young mother finish preparing their weapons. 5 people climb into the vehicle and head out. The old man stays behind to protect the 2 little girls, while the remaining 3 infiltrate the militia camp. The protagonist quickly eliminates a guard who almost spots them. And finally, the target truck is right in front of them. Meanwhile, Captain CO announces that tonight's game will not follow the usual 2 minutes of survival. Instead, the arena match will continue all night long. Enjoy yourselves as if today is your final day alive, he declares. Hearing this, Commander Huang immediately grows suspicious and returns to CO's private room. Don't forget to subscribe and support the channel for more movie recaps. Shockingly, the moment Captain CO steps outside, he suddenly fires his gun into the sky. The girl waiting outside instantly speeds away in the vehicle. More and more zombies begin flooding into the camp, forcing the guards to open fire as well. The constant gunshots only drive the zombies into an even greater frenzy. Meanwhile, the protagonist successfully enters the arena to rescue his brother-in-law. He rapidly guns down multiple zombies before firing a smoke grenade to cover their escape. Then he throws a flare in another direction, luring the undead away from them. The zombies immediately begin swarming toward the militia forces. The two men fight while desperately running for their lives. With zombies on one side and armed enemies on the other, the difficulty of surviving becomes nearly impossible. Dozens of soldiers prepare to ambush them from every direction. The brother-in-law suddenly risks everything by charging forward, stealing a rifle, and unloading bullets into the enemy crowd, taking down many of them. But out of nowhere, Commander Huang appears behind them. Without hesitation, the brother-in-law uses his own body as a shield to protect the protagonist from the bullets. Even as he dies, his hand still tightly grips the younger man's shirt. Another loved one has now been sacrificed. The protagonist completely loses control, charging forward like a madman and slaughtering everything in his path as years of rage and grief explode from within him. But behind him, Commander Huang is still raising his gun, preparing to fire once again. At that exact moment, the young girl crashes the truck straight into the scene from behind, rescuing Kang Dong-won just in time. Furious, Commander Huang immediately rushes out to find another vehicle and continue the chase at all costs. The two barely manage to escape before the streets become completely flooded with zombies. The infected swarm endlessly climbs onto the truck, making survival seem impossible. Just when things look hopeless, the older daughter suddenly appears to save them. She switches on the headlights to lure the zombies away, then fires a flare into a nearby alley to distract the horde. Thanks to her quick thinking, she successfully rescues her mother and Kang Dong-won from certain death. But moments later, another flare shoots up from behind them. An entire convoy of militia vehicles is now chasing them at full speed. The enemy cars aggressively ram the truck, nearly forcing it out of control. The older daughter slows down to help protect her mother's vehicle, skillfully causing one of the enemy cars to flip over and crash upside down in the middle of the road. Enraged, Commander Huang immediately orders his men to kill every single one of them. The militia gangs begin firing wildly. Meanwhile, the young girl's car becomes the target of a deranged driver. His wheels are covered in deadly metal spikes, and his driving skills are terrifyingly good. No matter how hard she drifts or maneuvers, he keeps up with her every move. In the end, the girl suddenly turns on her headlights, drawing a massive zombie horde directly into his path before finally taking him down. At the same time, the mother faces extreme danger as Huang's vehicle relentlessly pushes against hers. Thankfully, the daughter rushes in at the perfect moment and slams into Huang's car, forcing him back. Furious, he orders every floodlight in the area to be turned on. That decision means he is willing to destroy everything just to finish them off. Tens of thousands of zombies immediately rush out like students pouring from school after class. The situation becomes nearly impossible to survive. The protagonist leans out of a truck and fires at the giant floodlights, successfully destroying 2 of them. But while doing so, another enemy suddenly jumps onto the vehicle to attack. At the front of the truck, another gunman clings tightly to the hood while firing wildly. Thinking quickly, the girl slams on the brakes, launching him forward before finishing him off. Yet many enemy vehicles still continue the chase. The young driver drifts through the streets, crushing zombies and creating a massive wall of infected bodies across the road, causing several militia cars behind them to crash and flip over. But the most horrifying danger waits ahead. The giant floodlights illuminate the overpass above them, causing countless zombies to leap down like rainfall from the sky. The truck is forced to accelerate at maximum speed just to break through. Meanwhile, the pursuing vehicles behind them are continuously overturned by the endless wave of infected. Suddenly, the protagonist remembers the giant glass structure they passed earlier. He unloads an entire stream of bullets into it. The shattered glass collapses instantly, sending a massive avalanche of zombies crashing onto the road below and trapping Commander Huang's vehicle. He is pushed into a hopeless nightmare. The more he fires his gun, the more zombies are drawn toward him. It's the perfect ending for a completely heartless monster. The protagonist quickly contacts the cargo ship and informs them that they are only 15 minutes away. But the moment they finally reach the harbor, disaster strikes again. Lieutenant Seo suddenly appears and grabs the older daughter hostage. "Drop your weapons, or I'll kill her." The group has no choice but to obey. Seo plans to take all the money for himself and escape alone. At that moment, the older sister secretly signals to the younger girl with her eyes. Instantly understanding, the little girl activates a toy car to distract Seo, creating the perfect opportunity for her sister to break free. But Seo immediately turns his gun toward the younger child instead. Seeing this, the old man throws himself forward and uses his own body as a shield to protect the little girl from the bullet. The mother grabs a gun, but it's already too late. Just as the protagonist is about to fire, Seo escapes by jumping into the truck. Seo drives away while the rest of the group watches, helplessly in rage and despair. A sinister smile slowly spreads across his face as he drives the truck directly onto the cargo ship. The gang leaders on board greet him with smiles as if welcoming a hero. But seconds later, they suddenly execute him with a barrage of machine gun fire. Knowing he is about to die, Seo desperately shifts the truck into gear and slams the accelerator. The truck violently reverses toward the ship's entrance, allowing hordes of zombies to pour inside. The infected instantly massacre the crime boss and everyone aboard the ship. Back on shore, the old man is slowly dying from his wound. Everyone breaks down in tears as they share their final words with him. He simply smiles gently and apologizes, saying that he is sorry he could only help them make it this far. "We're family. Grandpa, please don't die." At that exact moment, a rescue helicopter suddenly appears overhead. Thinking quickly, the little girl grabs a flare gun and fires it into the sky as a distress signal. Promise me you'll keep the children safe." The mother decides to stay behind and hold off the zombies. Even with her injured leg, she forces herself back onto her feet. This mother is willing to sacrifice absolutely everything for her children. As long as they can survive, she is prepared to endure any pain imaginable, even if it costs her own life. She climbs onto a vehicle and repeatedly slams the horn, creating a deafening noise to lure the zombies away. Sometimes, a seed must die before new life can grow. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 survivors finally get close to the helicopter. The young girl suddenly pulls out a gun and forces the rescue crew to turn back for her mother. But the mother understands that doing so would put everyone else in danger. She picks up a gun herself and decides to make the ultimate sacrifice for her children. The protagonist realizes that simply standing there would never be enough after everything they have survived together. Without hesitation, he charges forward alone and opens fire to attract the zombie horde toward himself. Hearing the gunshots, the mother suddenly regains her fighting spirit and decides to risk everything one last time. Gathering every ounce of strength left in her body, she smashes through the barricaded door and escapes outside. On the other side, the protagonist continues risking his life to cover her escape. This time, he chooses to be the one who stays behind. Thinking quickly, he opens 2 massive gates to slow down the zombie horde, giving the mother enough time to reach the helicopter safely. Wait, where did the protagonist go? Did he really die like heroes usually do in movies like this? No, not this time. He made it back alive too. And now, they can finally reach a world worth living in. A place where they are free to live, free to hope, and no longer forced to live in fear every single day. Thank you all so much for watching until the very end of the video. Bye-bye.